what is your nerd origin story for people who do not know you, my friend?
All right. So it's actually a crazy little story. I mean, well, nothing too crazy, I don't think. So it all started when I was a kid, right? And I remember the first two VHS tapes that my mother ever bought for me. It was Batman, the 1989 movie with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson.
Oh,
Um, and then the second one was the Superman movie with Christopher Reeve, right? I wore those VHS tapes out. Literally, I probably broke them, honestly, how much I played them. So Batman and Superman, those were my guys, even to this day, you know? And I remember the first movie I saw in theaters was Spider-Man, the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie. And I remember just being blown away, like, oh my gosh,
mm,
this dude is like, you know, flipping off of buildings and spinning webs and stuff. I'm like, oh, this guy is cool, you know? And that's how I really started. I always used to watch like the cartoons and stuff growing up. But then it's when I got to middle school, I want to say, I started getting into the comics. So I
mm.
remember I had like a couple single issues, here and there that my mom would buy for me, but I never had like a complete story that I read. So my school library actually had graphic novels. And
Oh,
this blew
wow.
my mind. Yes, blew my mind. I was like, oh, wow, okay. And I checked out these three books. One was Superman Birthright. The second was The Dark Knight Returns, and then the
Mm.
third it was Ultimate Spider-Man. It was like Volume One of Ultimate Spider-Man.
What you talk about getting spoiled right out the
That's
gate?
a great library. Wait.
Like,
Dude, dude,
Wait,
dude.
I got completely screwed over. I didn't have a library that had like Ultimate Spider-Man or like the Dark Knight Returns. Like, what is going on here?
Man, I was like a kid in a candy store, honestly. And they had manga too. So like if you like manga, they had like all the volumes of Naruto up to that point. Yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, I read those and I was hooked. I was hooked.
that's insane. So, like, did you have like a bunch of friends growing up that were also into this stuff as hardcore as you were, or were you like most of us out there, where you were kind of like in your own little island at home and then kind of tried to hide it at school?
Basically I would say like I was kind of in my own little like
Mm.
bubble per se. Like I didn't really have that many friends that liked comics or really like read comics like that. Like everyone would go, see the movies and stuff, but not a lot of people read comics. I actually became more of the guy that, oh, if a Marvel movie came out, okay, let's talk to him. Like, let's ask him
Mm.
questions about what happens in the comics. So, more, I was like the encyclopedia, to other people.
That's a pretty cool title to have.
You know, I
Right. I
coined it
mean,
myself.
look at the library sitting behind you. I mean,
Yeah. So
Yeah,
wait,
man.
I gotta. Do you still have those VHS tapes of Batman '89 and? Because those are probably worth something now. I mean, that's like the new thing. We were talking about this earlier. Tapes and old
Honestly,
games.
I'm pretty sure they're somewhere, probably at my mom's old house, like collecting dust or something. Um, Actually, the funny thing about those movies, I have owned those movies in every single format possible. Had it on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray. I have the Batman movie on 4K, and I just pre-ordered like this box set of like the Superman movies on 4K. So any format of those movies, I'm jumping on it.
That's awesome.
that is insane. Like, okay, so like obviously your parents weren't like discouraging of it, because I've heard stories of some kids growing up where their parents are like, the classic, "Oh, they're gonna rot your brain out. You ain't doing,"
Mm.
like, "What this not even worth reading. What are you doing? Blah, 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 blah." Did your parents were they going that route, or were they like, "Nah, here you go."
Well, so like I was raised by like a single mom.
Mm.
I love my mom. She is like my hero. To this day, and she always encouraged it. She was like, "That's what he likes, and you know what? It's great." And I feel like she liked the fact that comic books and like these superheroes and these characters really gave me a strong sense of right and wrong.
Mm.
And I learned a lot of life lessons from comic books. And she just, I mean, it was better. She would prefer me reading comics than, being out there in like the streets or something. So she wasn't complaining.
Right, I mean, there's definitely worse hobbies you could have that are far more self-destructive than reading a comic book on the weekend,
Right.
Like,
Exactly. Exactly.
as
I
far
mean,
as
I
habits go.
I remember going to conventions with my mom. Like, it's funny thinking back to those days. And I'll give my mom some grief here and there, but I do remember going to conventions, and it's one of the things I look back at. Like, I wish I had like taken them in and enjoyed them more. Been more confident in myself when I was there, because I mean, 90s conventions doesn't get any more peak comic books than that. Like,
I can only
Right.
imagine.
Right. That's true. What was funny? I actually went through a stage where I was like, no, comic books, they're lame. I'm done. It was more towards like, I want to say like the I want to say like the end of high school. You started to get more interested in girls and
mm,
whatnot. I'm not trying to read no comics. But I got back into it.
mm,
Like seeing some of the MCU um, was a big step to get me back in comics. Movies like I think it was like the Dark Knight Rises that came
yeah.
out like right before I went to high school, and I was like, you know what, I miss this stuff. Let me start reading some more. And I YouTube, getting on YouTube, hearing about all these stories. I'm like, I want to read this myself.
Mm.
I During like Christmas, I would ask my mom. I'd be like, hey, I want some graphic novels. And then I found about Omnibus, and I just went crazy. So,
Yeah, like I said, as you can see behind you there for anybody watching the podcast,
Yeah.
you've got, like, the extensive library. I remember there was one time, I forget what it was I think it was one of our other podcast episodes, and somebody made a comment on something you said about Spawn, saying that you obviously don't read comics,
oh
and that was
yeah.
one of the funniest things I'd ever seen because I'm like, "You obviously don't follow him at all."
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. It always gets like I always have those random instances on TikTok, and it's all because I'm giving my honest opinion on things. I never try to like be disrespectful in my opinion. I always try to
Mm-mm.
and be very um not like overly critical, but I actually have like some weight with my opinions, at least to myself. Like I've read Spawn, of course. I own like the four compendiums. Like I like the character, but Todd McFarlane, he's not the best writer. That's all.
Yeah.
It's pretty to look at,
Yeah, great artwork.
very great. But the writing isn't always there.
Yeah,
That's
I
just my
think
opinion.
when it comes to comics, I think that it's one of those mediums where there is a ton of ownership, um, whether it's real or imagined, like from the fans, and they
Mhm.
definitely, and Star Wars is up there too, and they definitely get like very much like defensive. If it's not, I remember when Dawn of Justice came out, I I was working professionally and I gave it a bad review. And the hate that came my way, even though it was like widely not the most loved movie or whatever. And I remember that. And it just, again, like, to each his own. No one should ever feel, bad about liking or disliking something, but there
Mhm.
definitely needs to be it's good that you're saying your opinions and your educated opinions too, because if people are afraid to do that, then that's a major problem to say like, oh, I don't like this, or I do like this, or this is what I like and don't like. So I'm glad that you're giving your like unvarnished truth about what you think about some of these comics. That's what if we lose that, we're in trouble.
Right, right, exactly. And I get it. I definitely get it. We form attachments to these characters. I hate to say it, but like I think I know Superman and Batman more than I know some of my family members. Like, to be honest, you know.
How's that
Uh,
for honesty?
That's
right,
awesome.
right. I'm sorry if you're watching this, the Longbox family. I'm sorry, uh,
That's
but
so good.
it's like I get it, but there's certain things that people are gonna like that you don't like, and there's certain things that
Mhm.
you like that people aren't gonna like, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. Well said.